This week on the Stogie Geeks Show, we interview Skip Martin from RoMa Craft Tobac. In our Debonair Ideal segment for this evening, we're going to talk about unorthodox cigar packaging. In our Stogies of the Week, I will fight Chuck Norris for not one, but two cigars from the same manufacturer. All that and more, so stay tuned. Broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island, it's the show where cigars burn slow, ashes fall fast, and cocktails flow steady. It's the Stogie Geek Show. Brought to you by CAO has brought you iconic cigars over the years. Brasilia, Italia, La Traviata, done in a playful nature with a unique twist. Travel to the exciting world of CAO and back in just under an hour with any of the groundbreaking CAO World Blends. Test the boundaries of style with new age brands in the 95 rated Flathead. Honor the past with new classics like Pilon. Treat your palate to an array of flavors with Soulfire and Moon Trance. At CAO, the experiences are limitless. So what's your next move? The highly sought-after Punch Rare Corojo is back for 2016. Rare Corojo is made with a dark Sumatra wrapper and fillers from Honduras, Nicaragua, and the Dominican Republic, giving you a powerful yet rich smoke. These highly coveted and revered cigars are only made in small quantities once a year, so get them while you can. This is a punch classic that you can't pass up. M. Bombay cigars represent the most admired cigar culture of Cuba. They select the best of the best quality tobacco to use in the aging process. M. Bombay cigars are then rolled in Costa Rica by some of the most experienced cigar rollers, giving it a unique smoking experience. The band portrays the detailed and artistic nature of our small industry. Try the M. Bombay Casera, M. Bombay Mora, and the recently released M. Bombay Habano. M. Bombay Cigars, where the cigar is a way of life. Duran Premium Cigars, one of the fastest growing boutique cigar companies, providing smokers a portal into the old Cuban tradition of perfect balance and the lost art of progressive flavor construction. Roberto Pelayo Duran began his career in tobacco over 2 decades ago in Havana, where his reputation grew within Cuban circles. The creation of Duran Premium Cigars has given Roberto the platform to introduce a series of cigars that offer the same quality, construction, and detail which he perfected while in Cuba. Brands include the ultra-premium Roberto P. Duran Premium Cigar Series, Bazan Cigars, Nea, and Baracoa. Duran Cigars uses a seed-to-humidor approach, as all tobacco is grown on their farms and rolled in their factory in Esteli, Nicaragua. Rollers have been carefully chosen to carry out Roberto's precise method to ensure progressive flavor in each cigar. Duran Cigars invites you to make their premium your standard. Welcome, everyone, to the Stogie Geek Show. I'm your host, Paul Asadorian. Very excited to be here. This is episode 179 for March 17th, 2016, St. Patrick's Day. I got my green on. Mr. Will Cooper is on the lines via Skype, adorning his green as well. Welcome, Will.
Hey, greetings, Paul.
And we've got our green cigars as well, which is it's awesome when we do the Stogie Geek Show, especially on or around St. Patrick's Day, is that we get to smoke green cigars, which is just, it's really awesome. You know, if we were a beer podcast, we'd be drinking green beer, which is just not as awesome as smoking green cigars.
Oh, no, it's definitely, and the one we're smoking is the Cro-Magnon Fomorium by RoMa Craft Tobac, which we'll get into, which is actually one of my favorite candelas, and it's one I will smoke on a more regular basis.
Absolutely. I've lit mine up and I've been smoking it while we got the show started, and I'm really liking it so far.
Me too. We'll get into, but I think it's one of those candelas that really broke the mold, and it raised the bar on what you can do with a Candela wrapper. In term, because I think we all were stereotyped and pigeonholed into thinking it's just a very grassy cigar that was under fermented, which is not the case.
Right. And Will, why don't you introduce our special guest for this evening who can speak a lot to the cigar that we're smoking?
Yes. So I think he's calling us from a beach in Nicaragua right now. We have the co-owner and co-founder of RoMa Craft Tobac, as well as the co-owner of the Nica Sueno factory, Mr. Skip Martin. Skip, Will Cooper, and Paul Asadorian. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. You guys looked pretty excited in the opening montage there.
Yes. It is a Stogie Geeks montage we have in the beginning of the show. Yes. It's very nice.
Yeah, they found some interesting clips of us, and Jack Tarano somehow always gets into those clips. I've noticed.
Not once, but twice he's in there.
He's like, "Where's Waldo?" We've been saying.
Yeah. No, I'm outside of Rivas, which is pretty close to San Juan del Sur. I'm at a resort that's owned by the Pellis family called McCool. Yeah, I've been to a lot of places. This is maybe one of the nicest places I've ever stayed. So it's beautiful.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's a rough life, living the dream.
Excellent. Well, Skip, why don't you tell us about the Formorian?
So, well, let me back up. When I actually, I remembered older people in my life smoking green cigars from the 70s and 80s. Particularly, there was a couple. The one I remember the most was a cigar called Bearing, and it was a very popular, mild, kind of mainstream cigar that was very commonly a Candela or a real Claro or a double Claro. So after I started the factory and started learning a little bit more about tobacco, we were actually over in a Noxa factory, and they were showing us some tobacco, and we saw this green tobacco. And even crude tobacco is not really green. When it comes out of the curing barn, it's a light brown to kind of Colorado color. So we'd started using Ecuador, Connecticut, and Ecuador, Connecticut is not fermented. It actually, whatever color it achieves in the curing barn is the color pretty much that you see on the cigar. So when I saw this really bright green wrapper, I started asking about it, and I had remembered some Candela cigars even from when I owned the store. La Flor was one that I smoked. Camacho Corojo had a Monarch that I really liked. And what I remembered from those cigars were that this Candela wrapper on a really strong cigar was something that I enjoyed. So Omar at the factory told us that there was a very small amount, less than 15 pounds, that was actually too dark for the standard for what they were making. So he sold us that 15 pounds. We took some EMHs that were segundos that actually were going to require a new wrapper anyway, but they were 6 months, a year old. So we took the wrapper off of those EMHs and put the Candela wrapper on there and let them age for, I don't know, another month or 2 months. And I was really surprised at how much I liked it. And so I started going back and smoking other Candela cigars and realized how much better, at least in my opinion, this Candela cigar was to what was available on the market. And that wrapper being, also is called the American Market Selection because was popularized in the United States. So because of its inexpensive nature, because it only takes 3 to 5 days to cure in the curing barn, and then it's ready to go in a cigar, as opposed to going through 6 months of curing and fermentation. So I felt like we could add something to the history of that wrapper in terms of American cigar making, and so that's why we came out with that cigar. And every 4 or 5 months or so, we go over there, whatever they have set aside for us, we buy, and we make as many as we can. Now, instead of putting the wrapper on aged segundos, we actually make the cigar specifically with this wrapper, but there's still the Cro-Magnon EMH that just has this different wrapper.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Skip, what do you know what made the Candela wrapper so popular in the American market?
I think because it was inexpensive.
Mm.
Because they could take it out of the curing barn and put it on a cigar very rapidly. It didn't have to go through any kind of fermentation process. And early on in the United States, a lot of the tobacco that was being used in the factories in the United States uh, was tobacco that was imported after it was ready to use. There wasn't a whole lot of pre-industry or fermentation of imported tobacco, and particularly in these thinner leaves that were coming out of the Dominican and out of other places. Um, they were kind of all already kind of mild and grassy anyway, so it didn't really change much trying to get them darker in the curing barn, and actually Americans liked it. So if you go back to any television show or movie from the 50s, 60s, or 70s that is color, and you see a guy smoking a cigar, most more likely than not, it's green. Archie Bunker, George Burns, um, you know, all the famous police guys that smoked cigars. So it was just a very popular style in America.
That's really cool. Skip, this Candela that you've created, it pours a ton of smoke. And typically for me, Candela wrappers don't give off that much smoke production. Is that something you've kind of compensated for in the binder and the filler?
Well, I mean, it gives off the same amount of smoke that the Cro-Magnon does. I think the filler and binder is exactly the same as the Cro-Magnon EMH. So um, I don't know. I think that the smoldering, the smoke generally comes from heavier tobaccos. Um, it may be because this wrapper burns a little bit faster um, than say like the broadleaf or the Habano. Um, the other parts of it, burn a little hotter to kind of keep up with it. So
Hmm.
I don't know. I'm just a cigar smoker, so I don't know. I'm not an
So
expert on
so
tobacco.
really you just took the Cro-Magnon blend and put this Candela wrapper on it?
Yeah, that's the first production we had. I needed something special for the DC Tweet Up, and that's why we made that. So
It's interesting. It got me thinking, like if you were to just change the wrapper on certain cigars, how that really changes it. And you really hit a home run with that. Is there like a science behind that of just, swapping some wrappers out and keeping binder and filler the same?
I don't know if there's any science behind it. What I'll tell you is that in our factory from the beginning, we've always blended from the inside out.
Mm-hmm.
So we always blend from the filler, then we go to the binder, and then we add the wrapper. So, you know, I think if you took the wrapper off of any of our cigars, they would still be very smokable. Because the blend itself is self sufficient. It supports the flavor, the burn, the combustion without needing a lot of flavor from the wrapper to cover that up. And in all the cases, our wrapper just accentuates the blend. So
Mm.
um, I mean, Aquitaine and Cro-Magnon are the exact same blend. This Fomorian is exact same blend, and binder. Um, the spiciness or sweetness or those things change based on the wrapper, but at the end of the day, it's still just good tobacco in the filler. So
Mm. Yeah, I like your methodology of blending from the inside out. And
Yep.
I feel like not all cigars are made that way. So do you spend more of your blending time smoking Peritos in the filler and then, making sure that's just right before you start applying the wrapper?
um, I would say that's the way I spent my first 2 years. But um, when we get new tobaccos, I do smoke a lot of fumas or single wrapper or single filler cigars. Um, but we don't come out with new cigars all the time, so we don't blend a lot. And then when I do blend, it's not this kind of shot in the dark, kind of just throw it together and see if it works kind of approach. At this point, I have a very good idea how all the tobaccos that we use work together. And like I said, when we get a new tobacco, how they are independently and how they work together. So I generally have a very good idea of what I'm going for. We usually get the filler blend. There's a couple of projects we've worked on recently. We usually get the filler blend within a couple of tries, and then then it's just a matter of you know what order you put the leaves in, where you want to put the break in the cigar. There's little details around how it's constructed that change the complexity or how it smokes, but um, in terms of what's in it, I mean, if I'm going to make spaghetti, I know what's going to go into it, right? I know it's
Right.
it's going to have garlic and tomatoes and it's going to have onions and
And hopefully a pork shoulder.
but what it's not going to, I may change like how much of it is in there based on how ripe the tomatoes are, or I may change the percentages in the blend
Right.
depending on if something gets lost when you make it in a bigger size or
Well, it's interesting, Skip, is that we're really big into cocktails here in the studio, and it's the same thing with a cocktail. Anytime we get someone brings a new bottle of liquor into the studio, I always sample it, and then I make the determination, like, how much of a bitter component do I want to add and how much of a sweetness component based on that liquor. And it sounds like there's a lot of parallels there when you're blending a cigar, right? You got to balance out all those flavors, all those taste components with each other.
Yeah, I mean, so for example, every tobacco that we use, I classify it as, and I'm not trying to get too deep into tobacco because it annoys me when I hear cigar guys talk like they're experts, and I'm certainly not an expert, but um, every tobacco that I smoke, and this is only based on my own personal opinion, I either classify it as a base type flavor, something that's a little heavier, that's smoky, that's meaty, that has kind of heft to it. And I'm not talking about strength, I'm just talking about body. Or I classify it as something that's in the middle, like it's got really good aroma and flavor. It's not too strong, not too light. Or it's a really bright tobacco, like it has a very sharp, distinct flavor. And every blend that we make always has those three components in a balance. So, for example, if you have Cro-Magnon, for example, Cro-Magnon has Esteli Ligero, which is a very deep bass type tobacco. And then it has Pueblo Nuevo, which is an Esteli tobacco, but it's a Viso, and it comes from a specific place where the meatiness, the heaviness of it is pulled back a little bit, and you get better aromas, you get less kind of smoke production, you get better flavors. You could smoke a whole cigar made out of Pueblo Nuevo, and to me it would taste good. So it's that good kind of middle of the road kind of middle note kind of tobacco. And then you have something to me that stands out as really sharp, like Huili or Jalapa. Jalapa in general stands out a lot to me. If you have jalapa in a cigar, I can immediately taste it. So that's a very bright flavor for me. It's sweet or it's bitter. It just has a flavor to it.
Yeah,
So,
it's interesting you say that, Skip. I noticed that about Nicaraguan tobaccos. Some have like that really crisp kind of flavor to it, but then other ones have what I describe as more of an earthy component to it. And I think that's exactly what you were just describing.
yeah, and so what I do is every new tobacco I try, I categorize it in one of those three categories for my own kind of, memory bank. So, Esteli Seco is a medium type tobacco, but the Viso and Ligero are both heavy tobaccos. Pueblo Nuevo Ligero is a medium to heavy tobacco. The Seco is almost, a high end of the medium, and the Viso is a medium. Jalapa, whether it's Ligero, Seco, or Viso, is a bright tobacco to me. So, when we bring, we've been working on a lot of projects like Fable with Sean and Matul, Palestani with Mike and Greg from Cigar Hustler. I just worked on a recent project that we haven't announced yet for another new media group. All of these kind of special projects that I've worked on, where I sit down with those guys, is I say, hey, first of all, especially in the case of Fable and Paustania, if you're gonna do a blend, it's got to be your blend. I can't just give you my blend and say, hey, if this tastes good to you, let me slap your name on it. If I thought it was good enough to put out of my factory and I created it, I would put my name on it. So I don't just have a catalog of blends sitting around just waiting to slap someone's name on it. But we start by smoking individual tobaccos, and I go through this process of saying, this is how I do it. Do it however you want to do it. Name the flavor, whatever you want to call it. If you taste nutmeg, more power to you. If you taste, tangerine, coconut, whatever,
Orange
then
creamsicle, coconut,
whatever. Yeah,
bacon,
whatever. If you
bacon
taste
soda.
that, if that stands out to you as something that you can remember, then write it down. But really, it's all tobacco. There's just heavy, kind of good tasting and bright tobaccos. And then within those ranges, there's things that burn well, things that don't burn well. Within those things, there's things that smell good, that don't smell good. And then within those ranges, there's things that have more or less kind of percentages of nicotine. So depending on what you want to accomplish, you can skew the recipe, but at the end of the day, if it doesn't have all those components, it's going to be very linear, and it's going to not have. It's not going to be a cigar that I would say I'm proud to put out of my factory. So
Yeah, it's interesting, Skip. You very accurately, I think, described all of those components to a cigar, right? Like it's got to burn well, and that's a function of which tobaccos that you're putting in it. It's got to have great flavors that are balanced together. In all those different things. Obviously, drawn construction is a given, right? I learned that from Jose Blanco. Like it's gotta have good construction to it. But all of those different things, the nicotine strength, right, is another component. All those things go into a cigar, and it's really awesome that there's so many different components to it, yet we get all of these awesome cigars, which is just really cool.
yeah, I think, and I'll also say it's not hard to make a good cigar. I mean, it's easy to make a bad cigar. It's not hard to make a really good cigar. And the truth is, if you and William or Stogie Santa came to Nicaragua, I would have 40 tobaccos sitting on the table, and I would say, do whatever you want, but here's my general kinds of rules. Use at least one Seco, at least one Viso, and at least one Ligero. Don't put two heavy tobaccos as a binder and a wrapper. But outside of that, have a blast. There's not very many possibilities if you follow those two rules that you can come out with a cigar that's not smokable, because the raw materials themselves are good. I'm not going to have it on the table if it's not.
Right.
So if you put an Esteli Seco, an Esteli Viso, and an Esteli Ligero with an Esteli binder and a Esteli wrapper, it's going to taste like Esteli, right?
Yeah.
So
like you said, Skip, if you're going to make a sauce or a gravy, right, depending on what you think that is, like if you start with rotten tomatoes, it's going to taste rotten. But if you start with really fresh tomatoes, some really good garlic, right, some fresh basil, like as long as you have some guidelines, you're going to make a good sauce.
Yeah, and you can absolutely overdo it. You could put a whole jar of crushed red pepper and tomato sauce and it completely ruin it. Just like you could try to make a cigar. Like my first cigar I ever blended was on a Rocky Patel trip, and they misspelled my name. They wrote Slap instead of Skip, so it was the Slap bar.
Slap.
Oh man. And Doc Diaz was reminding me the other day of that cigar, and we were both kind of laughing. He goes, I've still got a couple. So I said, smoke it and tell me what you think. So he smoked and he goes, it's not any much better than it was the day. Right? And it's because it had 4 Ligeros and a Ligero binder and a Ligero wrapper. Now,
it was a Ligero. It's no wonder why I've never heard of the term Ligero Puro. Yeah, that's probably why, Skip.
That's a good reason.
Yeah, that's why Skip.
Slap. But being 7 years old or 8 years old, it burned pretty well, actually.
Right,
I wonder why.
Because it's kind of moderated out. But it just is like smoking, the charred outside of a steak, right? No matter. So, but it was smokable. It's not something I would say, At the end of the day, every time we do something, uh, we come up with an idea. Esteban and I generally agree, hey, this is what we want to use. Sometimes that comes out of a necessity or a desire to use a specific thing. So we'll find a new tobacco like um, this new tobacco we were buying from AJ, or this new tobacco we're buying from Lancaster. It's a broadleaf filler, which I've never used a broadleaf filler prior before. So we go, hey, I want to use this tobacco. So, this is a very heavy tobacco. It has a little bit of sweetness to it, but at the end of the day, it's one of these base level tobaccos. So we say, okay, what tobaccos do we want to put with this? Esteban doesn't use the same language I use, but he always says, okay, that's a Ligero, so I need a Seco and a Viso, probably 2 Visos. So we're going to have 4 tobaccos in the filler. He generally will navigate towards certain things. I'll navigate towards certain things. We'll say, okay, make it both ways, and then we'll see, which one we like best. And then we'll make 2 or 3 versions of it, and we'll both go, nah, number 1's not very good at all. It's got a weird flavor in it. Number 2 is okay, but it's boring. Number 3 is really good. Number 4 is really good, but it's stronger. So then we'll take number 3 and number 4, and we'll say, let's make 20 or 30 of these and let them sit for a month and see how the filler tastes, right? And then let's maybe put a couple of different binders on it to see how it tastes. So then we'll go back to it and go, yeah, 4 was initially better because it seems like it had more flavor, but it was stronger. But actually, with the time and this binder, number 3 is actually a little bit better. And then we'll say, okay, well, let's work on number 3, and then we'll try a couple of different wrappers. Based on the flavors, what 2 wrappers do you think would work good on this? And then we'll do the 2 wrappers, let them age for 3 or 4 months. Then we'll smoke it and say, yeah, this is definitely it with this wrapper, this binder. Let's make it in these shapes, and let's make 10,000 of them, right? And I've never gone through that process with him and had a cigar that just didn't stand out to me as being very good. But when we write down that blend, we don't just write down, hey, it's Esteli, Ligero, Pueblo Nuevo, Viso, Jalapa Seco, or whatever. We write down, here was the characteristics of this tobacco. It had more texture than normal, so it was a higher end Viso. It had this distinct smell to it. It had been aged for this period of time, etc. So down the road, and this is why I always say blending is a process, not an event. Down the road, I could give that recipe to 5 other factories, and they could not make a cigar that tastes the way that the cigar we want to make is, because it's those details about each of the components that makes it what it is. And so making a good cigar is not hard. It's making a good cigar over and over and over again that's very hard. So that's why you see so many limitados. It's not because you have this magical tobacco that's not available ever again. And that's also why you see a lot of very derivative, plain, simple kind of mass market cigars, because if you pick specific, tobaccos that are very specific and very distinct, it's not that it's unique, but it's that out of a crop of 30 manzanas, you're only going to get 5 or 10% of the yield of this type tobacco. And to be able to get that type of tobacco on a regular basis is very tough, which I can tell you. I mean, Neanderthal, we make less than 250,000 a year. Cro-Magnon, we make less than 350,000 a year. Aquitaine, we make less than 300,000 a year. Both of our intemperances, we make less than 250,000 a year. So, in and of themselves, there's nothing in there that is really a big line of cigars. Even though we do now make about 1,250,000 cigars, none of those individual cigars are over 250,000, 350,000 cigars. But let's say the Esteli Ligero we use, that's in 3 of those 5, is very unique. So we make almost 750,000, 850,000 cigars with at least one leaf of this very specific Esteli. So 850,000 cigars times 10 pounds per thousand is 125, 140 packs of that specific Esteli Ligero in every year, which is not an easy thing to find.
Right.
So
right.
if I'm going to make a cigar that I need 500 packs of Esteli Ligero, then I probably have to have my own farm,
Right.
right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
even if I have my own farm, and I come out of the farm with 2,500 quintales of Esteli every year, or even if I come out with 2,500 quintales of Esteli Ligero every year, only 30% of that is going to be the type that I just described.
Mm.
So if I'm going to blend a cigar that I'm going to sell to, I'm going to try to sell 1 million or 2 million or 3 million of, I can't use that type of tobacco and make it the same every year,
Mm-hmm.
unless I'm buying just shitloads of tobacco like General Cigar or other people do. So,
Right.
um,
So
that
Skip, how do you?
at the end of the day, that's why our cigars stand out, and it's not because we know something other people don't, or we have access to something other people don't. We do pay a little bit more for tobacco, and we take our time, and I think there's some benefits to being small, but there's also a detriment to being small. But that's why I think our cigars are different than other cigars. I think better, but that's my opinion, right?
Skip, when you were talking about the blending process, when do you start to factor in size? Like you talked about how you like derive the blend. Like when does size start to play a role?
I used to blend everything in 5x56, so Cro-Magnon, Aquitaine, and Temperance was all blended in 5x56. But I just don't smoke big ring gauges anymore. So, like for example, Wonderlust, we blended in a 50 ring gauge. And this new project we're working on, we blended in a 50 ring gauge. I think there's a couple of things we did with Mike and Greg that we blended in a 46. So there's that place where you start, where you come to that process of the blend through a certain size, and then you just make other sizes based on what sizes you think it will work good in. Like for example, you're smoking the Candela. I can tell you that Candela does not work in smaller ring gauges.
Mm-hmm.
Because we've tried it. It doesn't taste good, or it doesn't taste good to me. So it's the large format, the contribution of the filler that makes that cigar a good cigar, because the Candela is diminished.
And what is this, a 54?
56.
Okay.
Yeah. But then there's some cigars that don't smoke good in a big ring gauge.
Mm.
And one thing, one thing that we do is we keep the blend pretty much the same, ratio wise in every size. So if it just doesn't work in a size, we just don't make that size.
I gotcha. Stogie Santa has joined us in studio.
Oh.
Welcome, Stogie Santa.
Hello. How's it going, Skip?
And we have another very special guest
And
in
Coop.
studio. We've only met once, and I'll be honest, I don't remember your name.
It's Taylor Hall.
Taylor. How's it going, Taylor?
Very, very well. Very, things are going well.
And you're with EPC Cigars.
That's correct.
That much I do remember.
I appreciate that.
Excellent. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very
It's your
much.
first appearance on the show. You
It-
visited the studio before,
Back
I
in
believe.
November.
Yes.
But this is my first appearance. I do, in fact, exist. It's on video now.
Excellent.
Hey,
There's
Excellent.
video record.
Excellent. You guys got some cocktails. Stogie Santa, you're rocking a dirty
Cocktails.
martini, it looks like.
Oh, yeah.
It's very nice.
I'm drinking Florida Cognac 7 years.
No, that's hard to believe.
Very nice. Very nice. Will or Stogie Santa or Taylor, right? Did I get that
Taylor.
right? Taylor, do you have any questions from Mr. Skip Martin?
Oh, I'll tell you what. Maybe not a question, but a statement. I'm really impressed with Skip. One of the only cigar maybe I'm so narrow-minded that bringing in lean manufacturing and the 5 S's into the warehousing and production is just an amazing feat. I don't think people realize how much time and effort, but in the long run, it works out well. So I commend you on that. It's something near and dear to my heart. That's my profession. So it's just really,
Thanks.
it really does, and it shows. It really does. People don't realize one thing. You can't. I mean, tobacco is one thing. Time wasted is another. So anyway, I just had to throw that out to you, Skip. I was
So,
talking with Mike with
Skip,
that.
along those lines, Skip, you opening a new, is it a warehouse
Yeah,
in
that's what I'm bringing
Texas?
up.
Is it
Mhm.
Austin, Texas?
Well, so there's two companies. There's Nica Sueno, which has the factory. Nica Sueno is about to open a new bodega to store tobacco. Back to what I was talking about with buying tobacco, we're now having to buy 3, 4, 5 years at a time. So in order to do that, unfortunately, we have the cash to do that because everything we make sells as fast as we can make it. So, but we needed to have space, and I don't want to just go into a bigger factory and lose what we have where we're at. So we're going to move some of the functions like the pre-production and the storage of materials over to another place. In Austin, we're building, we've kind of sacrificed a little bit. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just Mike and I, Angela, my ex-wife, and Jamie, Mike's wife, that works at the company. But, we get these shipments in that have 35, 45, 50,000 cigars every 10 days. They're gone they're gone within 2 or 3 days, but just the space we needed to process those kinds of orders, we didn't have. So when we started looking to build a new facility that had the right type of warehouse and the right type of packaging and shipping and receiving space, we just decided to build the front side of it as kind of something that represents our brand. A smoking lounge we want to hang out, a craft beer bar, nice offices. So that's what we've been doing for the last 6 months in Austin.
I see. Okay. So that'll be kind of like a lounge, but also your warehouse as well.
Yeah, it's really a place where when people want to come and visit Austin, a place that reflects our brand the same way our factory reflects our brand. So you can come in, pick a sample out of the exhibition humidor, grab a craft beer, sit down, talk to Mike, kind of see how we do what we do. The same way that you can do in Esteli.
Road trip.
Road trip. I'm thinking that.
Oh yeah, Austin's a great city too. It's a great technology city. So.
Yeah, and to Mark's point, that is my background, kind of logistics and business process stuff globally. But obviously in Spanish the 5 S's don't translate. They're originally Japanese, but and if you asked anybody that worked in our factory, they wouldn't be able to tell you that we use lean manufacturing or that we use the 5 S's. But if you said, hey, what are the 2 or 3 things that are really important around here? It's like, keep everything clean. Don't waste, don't move things unless you need to.
Love it.
They understand the principles behind the 5 S's, but even if we don't put it up on a PowerPoint slide and preach it like you would at a corporation, but it is part of our organizational culture. So
right, you have a flow chart. You know what's going down.
Right, I do.
Yeah, I know you do. There's no doubt about it. But how's the buy-in with the employees? How are they going with that, Skip? Are they buying into that process in the beginning, slow but sure?
Well, we only have now 45 employees, and we've never added more than 3 or 4 at a time. So over 5 years, we've kind of grown slowly. So we picked the right people for our first 5 or 10. We really kind of hammered in our culture and how we wanted to do things and reinforced that with how we take care of them. Mm-hmm. And then as we've added people, we look very closely, more importantly than your skill as a roller or your skill as a buncher or your skill at sorting tobacco, we look to see if that person is going to fit into that culture. And then once they get there, there's been a few that have had a hard time adjusting. Like I would say if you take one of our brand new employees and let's say someone in packaging and they drop a cigar on the ground, they're going to pick it up, put it right back into the process. And 4 or 5 of the other ladies in the packaging are going to go, hey, hold on a second. Let's look at that cigar. And they're going to look at it and make sure it's good. And then it doesn't take long before that new person starts figuring out, hey, that's the way we do things. So, and that seems like a very small thing, but you'd be surprised how different that is. So, for them to have a sense of ownership in the quality of the work that they do,
right? That's important.
Oh, isn't it?
Super important.
Yeah.
It's very important. Yeah.
They're great liaisons and watching what you're doing, and it's an interesting and a fun process. And what happens, you end up working much smarter. You really do. The bottom line, the time that you gain, the time.
And I can tell you this. I mean, and this is not a knock on any other factory or any of the way anyone else works, but I'm not a big shot that sits in a corner office somewhere just receiving importing people. Neither is Esteban. Uh, you know, and one part of the day I might be in there helping packaging stuff. Another part of the day I might be moving boxes around. Another part of the day I might be sweeping. When I am sitting down working on things, I sit at a table right in front of the factory. Um, I walk around on a regular basis, kind of just touching base with people and making sure that there's little details that they know I'm watching, and that um, that I know what they're doing, and that I appreciate what they're doing, and whenever we have some reason to celebrate something, we do that collectively. And um, I think Esteban and I and his two sons and his wife, and I think everyone in the factory views us as part of a team, and we don't have this kind of hierarchy inside of the factory that you see
Super.
in a lot of places. So um, I don't know. It's one of these things where, like, if you're gonna build a business, Mike and I sat down and I had the same conversation with Esteban, and I said, look, I have money. I'm not here to try to make money. That's the goal. It's a business, but I want to be able to make enough to take care of your family, take care of Mike's family, take care of my family, make sure that we can take care of the people that work for us, make sure that their kids have a better life, that they don't have to work in a cigar factory if they don't want to. Um, and if we're going to accomplish that, we let's do it the way we want to do it. Let's not do it the way everybody else does it. Uh, and so I think pretty much all of us, at least the principals, the main people, do what we do every single day because we like to do it, not because I need my name needs to be bigger than somebody else's name, or I need to build a bigger factory, or have my name on the side of the factory, or have a nicer car, or I don't need that. You know, um, I would much rather have uh, people walking around town going, man, that factory really does take care of their people. And, one day when they have a new opening, I really want to work there. To me, that's a much better thing to say than, hey, that they have the biggest factory in town. So,
No,
Will, I'm
go
sorry. Will
ahead.
hasn't asked any questions of Skip.
Oh, I walk in late, and it was my
Poor
bad.
Will has remained silent through the whole thing.
Okay,
That's all right.
my
I got
bad.
I got two questions, and I'll ask the first. The second one may take us a little off track, but let's ask the first one. Skip, we have a lot of we actually have a growing base of listeners and viewers in Europe. What can you tell us about Wanderlust?
yeah, so there's been a lot of discussion about this, but at the end of the day, we started this relationship with the Schusters to distribute for us. They're a very old, established, respected company in Germany. When you talk to a lot of the old school tobacconists, you say who in this business in Germany do you respect the most? Philip Schuster's name comes up almost every time. So we were very honored to have them ask us a number of times to be considered for distribution. We just didn't. I mean, at the end of the day, we sell everything we make. So taking part of our production and sending it to Germany, basically to make less money, doesn't seem like a good idea right off the top. But Mike and I were excited by having a little bit of diversity in our distribution. It enabled us to do some things from a tax perspective, from an organization perspective, that made sense, and it allowed us to kind of, see, hey, how are we going to compare against these other brands in a different market? Can we compete? So when we started that, I have had this project that I've been looking at working on. The problem is it could never be more than 50, 100,000 cigars a year, and you can't launch a core brand in the United States if you're only going to be able to sell 50 to 100,000 cigars a year. So it just became a very good fit for something that we did specifically for Europe. It's a more medium type blend. It's more nuanced. It's more Cuban-esque, for lack of a better word. So it's something that fit really well for Europe. So, you know, Neanderthal is not available in Europe. I don't know that it would be a big seller in Europe. It's definitely become our most popular cigar in the United States. But in Europe, I don't know that cigar would work. And honestly, I don't know if Wonderlust would work extremely well in the United States. But, you know, it was just part of developing a product for a specific market.
I've often found, Skip, that the European releases of cigars tend to resonate in the U.S. with, like, the Stogie Geeks crowd, right? Like, we really appreciate a lot of the way you blend for Europe. Like, we appreciate that as Stogie Geeks. I know there's something to be said for that.
I think they resonate with people like you, Paul, because you like milder to medium cigars, and you're kind of more the exception. You know, if you want to make a cigar that sells 30 million cigars a year, it's going to be a very mild cigar because that's what sells. I mean, Baccarat or, you know, there's tons of cigars that sell, you know, 10 million, 15, 20 million units a year that are very mild cigars. You don't see strong cigars selling that kind of units, and that's because the large majority of cigar smokers smoke mild cigars, even though we don't think that way. But the large majority of hardcore kind of cigar geek guys smoke stronger and fuller cigars. I mean, they'll get excited about, you know, Cuenco and Blanco. They'll get excited about Sobremesa. They'll get excited about El Guaguense. But at the end of the day, they're not going to buy box after box after box, year after year after year of that cigar. In my opinion, those guys won't. Those cigars may take off and sell 5-10 million cigars because they're good, medium, you know, very well constructed, flavorful cigars. But that's not who our market is. You know, our market is not. I'm not trying to say Bud Light, but like our market is not Sam Adams or you know, Pilsner Urquell. Our market is, you know, coffee stouts.
Right. Yeah. No, it's a great analogy, right?
Yep.
Like there's a certain body to a cigar, and people enjoy certain different kind of a body for beer, and they're definitely from light to heavy. There's a huge spectrum when it comes to cigars and beer. I think it's a great analogy, Skip.
But that variation that you're looking for, sometimes as much as it's not a lot that you're looking for in a mild, that everything's there, you differentiate yourself from that market, and you have a better perspective on it.
Right.
And you're going to grow that market.
But someone that's a casual beer drinker, you give them a big, heavy coffee stout, like they just can't deal with it, right? But you get a person who's a regular beer drinker, likes to sample a lot of different beers, they can appreciate a coffee stout, right? Just like, I love a Neanderthal just as much as the next person.
Yeah,
Don't
but
get me wrong,
but see,
right?
the whole thing is, I find with Skip cigars. Now you look at Neanderthal. Okay, is there strength? Absolutely, but
no, there's balance.
That's
balance.
That's why, you know, and in a small amount of time that Skip, me and Coop had this conversation many a times. I don't think there is a company of this size has made an impact on this industry. That the small amount of time I've been in it, I just preach it so much because I do believe in it.
I bought a couple more Neanderthals. I was in your store yesterday. I bought a couple more Neanderthals. Oh, this morning. I think it was this morning. I bought a couple more. I'm like, I said, don't go by that. Don't be afraid by the strength. Yeah.
Look at the cigar in the whole thing.
But I'll give you an example. So on that topic, at the end of the day, you smoke a Neanderthal, you're done. That's the cigar.
But that's not a bad thing either.
Right.
You know what I mean? It fulfills what you have, what you need. So,
but I'll give you an example. So going back to EP Carrillo. So when I first started smoking back in the 90s, first of all, there was a lot of bad cigars. So if you take those out of the equation, I was smoking things like, Ashton, Fuentes, Padrones, those kinds of things. And then as I kind of got more where I was smoking 4 or 5 cigars a day, those cigars were always good, but they never went down in my mind as quality wise. But you know, by the third or fourth one, I couldn't even taste them. I felt like I'm spending $10, $12 on, and now which would be $15, $20 on a cigar when I couldn't taste it really. But I still wanted to smoke 4 or 5 a day. So, you know, when I found things like, you know, when I found the Wavell, the original Wavell from
Oh.
Miami, and that was a strong cigar. It was a light colored cigar, but it was a ball buster for
Was
me.
that La Gloria Cubana?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Paul,
that
Paul had a box on the back.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yeah. And so, like, I would go to Miami for business things. I would specifically delay trips over in Miami so I could go down to Calle Ocho. And, I probably walked in and talked to Ernie about 30 times, and he probably never remembered me, until years later. But, I would walk in there every time and go, man, I'm such a fanboy. How do you do what you do? And, all these things. So that LaFleur, I'm still to this day, if I go buy other cigars, I still buy LaFleur's, the heavier stuff from Krishna Roa, the heavier kind of, the people who really know tobacco and who know how to make full flavored cigars, not necessarily strong, right? So I said coffee stout. A coffee stout could be 8% ABV or it could be 16% ABV.
right.
I'm not necessarily talking about nicotine content. I'm just talking about boldness of flavor. And, I think that's why people got attached to Tatuaje. I think that's why people got attached to what Pepin makes. Why people kind of, get attached to those things instead of getting attached to, some of the other things. So I believe, though, in my opinion, that a lot of these older school kind of Cuban guys, I mean, that cigar, the Wavell, which was a really strong, flavorful cigar for me back in the day, today probably wouldn't even rank it wouldn't even be on the radar of strong cigars. So, I don't know that there's not a whole lot of people who still make cigars like that are mass market. Because they contain heavier tobaccos, and heavier tobaccos are expensive. And, just like I have gone towards milder, medium type cigars that are smaller ring gauge, I think as you get older, as you have more experience in tobacco, you kind of move that direction. And, if these guys have been doing it for 35, 45, 50 years, they're further down the road than I am moving in that direction, I think. So.
They know what they're doing. To say
Yeah.
the least.
And Skip, do you have any what new stuff you got coming out? You got new projects you're working on?
I always forget what I can talk about.
That's okay.
That's what we bank on. That you'll just talk about everything.
Just drink some more rum. That's all
Drink
I ask.
some more rum and then tell us what you got coming out next.
Right. I think so. We work on things. I don't know if most people realize how much timeline there is. Sometimes I'll get people come to me and say, "Hey, I want to make a new cigar brand, have it ready for IPCPR. I want to do a new blend ready for IPCPR," and it's March. Right? It doesn't work like that for us. If we're gonna have something for the trade show this year, we probably already had it in process last year. Just after we make our cigars, there's a 4 or 5 month period, and then in the process of blending, as I described to you earlier, there's a 3 to 7 month period. So, this is our 5-year anniversary for Cro-Magnon. So we have a project that we're working on with Zycar for our 5-year anniversary. There's a thing coming out called the Monolith, which has some really cool stuff inside of it from Zycar, and that's unique and new and never been released before. And then there's some of our favorite things from Zycar, and then there's going to be a new cigar from that's a Cro-Magnon blend. It's not a new blend, but it's a new size that's going to be in there. Fable is a project that we've been working on at the factory that's been released, in the first kind of real production is going to come out with that. So that was released the same way Cro-Magnon was released. They kind of followed our template on releasing, coming up with the blend, making some cigars, selling them in samplers to make sure everybody tries them, and then kind of developing the packaging and that stuff later on. Paustania has a limited edition coming out in addition to the Habano and Broadleaf that we make for them. We have a project that we're working on with 2 guys that's going to come out around Independence Day, which I don't know if I can talk about, but it's pretty cool. A project with Cigar Dojo and Famous, which is very good. Probably one of my favorite cigars I'm smoking right now is that cigar. It's a new intemperance, an extension to the intemperance line that we're making just for this project. I mean, we have a lot of things going on. I mean, you know, we really don't. RoMa Craft itself does not come out. I mean, we came out with Cro-Magnon. A year later, we came out with Intemperance, both wrappers, and then a little bit after that, we came out with Aquitaine, and then it was 3 years before we came out with Neanderthal. So while we may do additional sizes every now and then, or small projects for certain people, we don't really come out with new blends a lot. Wonderlust is probably the newest core blend that we've had since Neanderthal. And so, I don't know. I don't think there's anything. I don't feel everything we do consumes the production capacity of the factory, and I don't feel like as a cigar maker that there's anything that we haven't done that we need to prove. In terms, you know, there's nothing left undone in terms of like a mild cigar or a strong cigar or whatever. I use all the kinds of materials that I want to use, and so I don't know. I think the monolith's probably the coolest new thing that's coming out, and that'll be at the trade show. And then also, I think I don't know if we've announced this before. SGP and maybe the HOXD are going to become part of the core line to Neanderthal. So we'll start making those.
Oh, that'd be good.
Nice.
Awesome.
Yeah, on the regular basis.
So you haven't been busy or anything?
No, oh hell no. It was,
Well, you know, I stay pretty busy. I work 7 days a week, honestly.
I thought it was 8 days a week.
26 hours a day.
Yeah. Oh, there's no. I mean, there's whatever. Okay.
I don't
Skip
I don't consider it a job, but you know, I mean, like right now I'm in a $1,500 a night private whatever resort, 5-star resort. Tomorrow I'm taking a helicopter ride to Florida Cania for a private tour.
Oh.
Then we have
Oh, you.
Tough. Jesus.
It's not a job; it's a lifestyle.
and then when we get back from that, I'm my girlfriend and I are going on Mr. Pellis's private yacht for a tour of the of this area. So, and then tomorrow we have like a 4-hour massage or something. So it's gonna be rough.
And I saw that sandwich, by the way, that beef sandwich. That looked real good. I was like,
I tell you what I don't do, I do not look at Skip's post after 8 o'clock. I can't do it. I can't do it. The man, I'm trying to lose weight, and I see these posts. I'm telling you, I see after 8 o'clock, I go by
Exactly.
Skip. I can't do it.
I need to lose weight for sure.
So, Skip, I've got 5 questions for you that are built on the previous 5 questions I've asked you when you've been on the show in the past. This is like your third appearance on the show?
I think so.
So, Skip, what's one thing about you that most people do not know? Other than you're getting a 4-hour massage tomorrow.
I don't know. I was a pretty good college baseball player. I don't know if
Really?
people know.
Excellent.
I didn't know.
Excellent.
I didn't
There you go.
Okay.
Choose a song that, in your opinion, best represents one of the following. Either A, your life, B, one you would play to get pumped up, or C, the best breakup song in your opinion.
Oh man, I don't know. I mean, I listen to all kinds of music, so you know, like lately, I posted this the other day. I've been listening to Marvin Gaye every morning, and there's a song called I don't know if did you see this, Cooper, on the yeah, so there's a song from hold on a second, I don't remember the exact title. It's a long name. It is Inner City Blues, Make Me Wanna Holler, if you guys heard that song.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
so I think the way you stay kind of hustling is not let them catch up with you, right? So I don't want to be hungry and poor again, that's for sure.
Hey, Skip, you're a Bee Gees fan too, right?
I like everything, man.
Yeah, I saw some of the Bee Gees
Wow.
stuff. I was impressed. Yep.
Wow, that takes a lot.
It does. It's very telling.
I-
Skip,
I-
as most
I
people
like
know,
BGs and alcohol don't mix.
No.
Skip, as most people know, the popular game of Ask Grabby Grabby is played in teams of 3. So other than yourself, who would represent your team in the game of Ask Grabby Grabby? So you need 2 people to round out your team.
I don't know the rules of Ask Grabby Grabby.
There's no rules.
There's no rules.
Yeah, I'm a little uncertain
Rules?
on how this game is played also.
no rules. It's popular in Europe.
Like what? How does the game work?
Oh, gee.
There's-
Why? 5 W's.
Yeah. Who's on your team, Skip, for Ask Grabby Grabby?
Well, I mean, okay, if it involves beating the shit out of guys who grab my ass, it would be Tom Lazuka and maybe some other crazy-eyed guy like maybe Phil Zangi, right? But
By the way, Skip, you are the
If
most
it-
popular. You are the most popular answer to that question.
You
since
are.
you've been
Most
at-
people
yeah.
want
Have
you on their team.
You,
So-
you
Okay.
probably So that's
I don't know if that's good or bad.
I don't know.
you are the most popular answer.
The jury's out.
I mean, if it involves me going out and trying to grab some ass, I don't know. Maybe I'd want a couple of guys better looking than Zangi and Lazuka.
Oh, dude.
Like maybe,
Oh,
maybe,
dude.
maybe Christian Aroa and Juan Cuenca.
Very nice.
That guy's a ladies' man.
We had Enrique Sanchez on the show recently, too. He's pretty good looking, too.
Or he smells better than any guy in the cigar business. by the way.
That was the best answer to that question. Just the whole, in-depth knowledge
That's
we
right.
got about people in the cigar industry was just great. Skip, if you could have dinner with one person, who would it be and why? Alive or dead, fiction or nonfiction?
Oh man, like just to eat with them.
To
It'll
have
probably-
dinner with them, to break bread
I
with
don't know.
them, share drinks, food.
I don't know. If it was just to eat, it would maybe be like Dom DeLuise, maybe. But
There you go.
if it was like to have a conversation, I think I don't know. Maybe
Prostate.
I don't know. There's a lot of people that are really interesting to me. Like I know I'd love to have dinner with Barack Obama. I know that's not a popular cigar answer, but he seems like a
judge
very interesting
No,
person.
no, presidents, regardless of your political affiliation or your political views, are a very popular answer. Skip, outside of the career you chose or the career that chose you, if you could choose anything, what would be your fantasy career or job?
Honestly, I'm doing it right now. I've had my own company, sold my own company, worked for multiple other types of companies, and there's really nothing I'd rather be doing than what I'm doing right now.
You're living the dream right now. I can see that.
I really am.
That's awesome. Well, Skip, thank you very much for appearing on the Stogie Geek Show. We thank you, as always, for
Thank
appearing.
you.
It's always a great interview. We love having you on, Skip. Love your cigars, too. This cigar is really good. I love your Candela. It's awesome.
Yep.
Boxworthy, in my opinion. I agree with Will. This is a cigar I would smoke, a Candela that I would smoke
Yep.
all the time. So
Thanks,
It's
guys.
great to go. Thank you, Skip.
thanks, Skip. With that, we're going to take a short break, come back, and do our Debonair Ideal segment for this evening. So stay tuned. Don't go anywhere.